This is Gerald H.W. Lewis, better known for this Con-crete University live stream as Dean XL Be Free. We want you to excel and be free. As we get into this, like we usually do, we start off with our theme music.
It's Con-crete University. No, before you enroll, ended up in the penitentiary. Listen up to Dean XL. Be free, be free. And you will know before you go. Never have to see how prison can really be. Listen, learn and practice consistency. This is prison literacy. Con-crete University. Con-crete University.
Before you enroll. So you don't have to go. Where the people at? Where you at? Tune in and let me know you're getting
Con-crete University. I've got to see, oh, let to see. Con-crete University. Keep going and see. Con-crete University. Yeah.
see your friends, see your members with
Con-crete.
principal. Thanks for tuning in.
It's Con-crete University. University.
Right, Andre Bronson and Melissa. First time tuning in, appreciate you.
It's Con-crete University. Con-crete University.
Another minute or so.
University. Con-crete University. Yeah. Oh.
Right now. Where you at, Damon Walker? OG Red. Thank you for those who have tuned in for this week's edition of Con-crete University. I am again Daryl H.W. Lewis. I spent 12,975 days in a maximum security housing unit for incarceration. For those of you who are not necessarily mathematicians, that's 35.6 years. The reason that I share this with people and say this during most of the podcasts or every one of the live streams is to not brag about the amount of time that I did, but it's to let you know that I have the mindset and I have the experience to be able to explain anything that needs to be known about prison. So I did have a comment that came in through another source where a guy was saying, how can you speak about all prisons when you've only done time in one state? In my opinion, prison is prison is prison. Some of the setup may be different, but most of the experience is all the same. So this is not to say that I know everything about every prison, but for the most part, the nucleus of what it's all about, I'm your guy. I greatly understand what this is about. So I want to give a couple shots out before we get started. Most definitely always to my core three. That's Eric and Alexis Bronson, giving me the push that I needed, as well as the equipment and things that I needed to make this happen. If you pay attention to the page, Con-crete University, on several platforms, we'll discuss that at the very end. You know, these are the people that help to put together the AI reels, as well as the stories that show my transition from the inside to the outside, as well as they help me with the whole entire live stream. I also have to give a special shout out to our engineer. She's the third person of our core team at this particular moment. That's Renee Rivera. Thank you for much. The room that you've given me and the places and spaces that I need to be able to make this happen. So I have to always give shouts out to those people that help you. Also, throughout this week, I had a rough week this week, had a little bit of anxiety and stuff, and I have to give a special shout out to my cousin Jocelyn Twink Bronson. She helped me talk me through a lot of stuff and also helped me with the business aspects of some of the things that I can look forward to in the future with regards to this. But also another special shout out have to go out to Nakia Nelson, who is also my cousin, who I call Nixter. She's a psychologist, and she does a lot to help me keep the mindset, because one of the things that you may not understand about doing this type of streaming with regards to prison, the more and more I do this, the more I talk about this, I have to take breaks, because for me to constantly write and think and prepare things and talk about prison in some ways it puts me back. As we said when we discussed this about me going back inside the prison to help those in need in there, I was telling you that some of the guys and people that I know said, "Man, why would you go back inside of prison after you got out?" But this leads me to the phrase of the day, and the phrase of the day is, "The duty of the civilized person is to teach civilization to the uncivilized." The duty of the civilized person is to teach civilization to the uncivilized. I'll say it 3 times for effect. The duty of the civilized person, that means the person that thinks well, or has some type of tradition of doing righteousness or being right. Their duty is to teach civilization, meaning those who don't want to be civil, those who don't have manners, those who don't have principles, is to teach them civilization. So basically, to break down this phrase of the week, the duty of the civilized is to teach civilization to the uncivilized, is basically saying, if you're in a position where you believe that you have the wherewithal, or you have the mindset, or you have the training or the skills, or even just thoughts or opinions, even sometimes even opinions, to help someone that's in need that may be uncivilized, then it is your duty as a person on this planet to help those who are in need, or to help those who may not know a specific thing. Now, please understand, I know that a lot of people say, well, if you do stuff like that, that means you have to make a judgment call. And if you start to judge people, that'll make them offensive. The thing about judgment calls is you have to learn how to be able to judge situations and judge even possibly people. Because I know the Bible says, "Judge lest ye be judged." And other books say that don't judge people. But you have to logically judge situations and judge people. But the part that we always get misconstrued is the condemnation of that. You don't have to condemn people. So we have to learn and teach ourselves how to be able to make judgments or assessments of people's and situations without condemning them for their acts. Because a lot of times, sometimes behavior can be corrected if somebody would just speak a word to the right about such a person's behavior. Maybe they may be doing something that they're not really actually knowing that they're doing that could be incorrect. And maybe sometimes some of the stuff that you may try to teach to someone else, you can learn. In teaching, you learn. Always remember that. Whenever you're trying to teach someone something, but even the information that you get from them, you learn as well. So the reason I chose this quote for this week is because we're going to talk about our theme for the day. Our topic for the day is going to be the bonding process. It's about how they're going through bonding and what that's all about. Excuse me, I said bonding, but what I meant to say was booking. And so this is a whole situation that anybody should know about. Even if you're not prison minded, you should know about the booking process, because a lot of times we have issues with our family or loved ones that may go through booking, and we're trying to make their bond and we don't understand what's going on, and it's time consuming. So we'll get into that as well. But once again, I wanted to thank those certain peoples. But there's a very, very, very special shout out that I must give. And I know I'm kind of rambling a little bit and going back and forth, but there's a very special shout out that I must give, and a very special thanks to a brother friend of mine by the name of Robert Washington, aka, or also known as Dark Knight. This is a brother that I created a bond with, or formed a bond with, while I was on the inside. And so he encouraged me to come out. He said, when you come out, we need to do some big things. So he witnessed and saw some of the things that I was doing online on social media. And he told me, he said, "Man, bro, I got something for you that I think that you need that might help you out." He said, "Just give me an address." I gave the brother the address, and he sent me this big, wonderful light. Of course, I can't show you the light right now because I'd have to do a lot of rearranging to show you the light. But he just sent, out of the kindness of his heart, he sent me this light to help. And so I'll give you his information later, because he's doing some great things on social media as well. And if you could tune into some of his stuff, I'm sure that you'll find interest in some of it. So that's what brothers do. None of you truly believes, or none of you truly really cares about your brother until you wish for your brother what you wish for yourself. And so if he wants to see me good, like I said in one of my stories, my supplementals, in one of my stories, I was explaining to how he sent this to me, and you may be able to see it online soon. But one of the things about it is, if someone tells you, or someone says that they want to see you win, they won't just say it with lip service. They won't just say it with their mouth. They'll try to help you, put you in a position in order to be able to win. And so I thank the brother for that because he actually put me in a position by helping. And it's not just him, there's others, but this week was a great thing and a great experience to be able to receive that in the mail. The brother just, donated from his heart, and I greatly appreciate it. And I won't let you down, brother. Appreciate you. So before we get deeper into the story today, into the topic today, I want to share something that happened in my life with regards to my parole officer. So I have a new parole person that I just went to meet today, and so it's my first time going to meet them. And so during the days, I watch my job. I watch my newborn. I watch my newborn child. I keep my newborn child while her mother works. So I made a call ahead of time to say, hey, is it possible for me to bring my child with me to this 9:30 early in the morning meeting? And I was thinking that she would say, hey, no problem. So baby, you coming in, do a little stuff that we do, and you'll be on your way. But what she said to me was, and I have to be careful of how I word this because, again, there's certain words that you can't say on social media. But basically what she said is, because your child is a child, we're having people that have to register today are going to be into the office. And that wouldn't be a good situation if you were to, bring a child and someone is to basically be excited. So I'm talking about the SOs. If you have to look up what the abbreviations for SO is, feel free to do that. But I'm sure that you basically get what I'm saying if I'm talking about a child not being able to go in a specific place. Now, someday we'll get deeper into that because that is a very serious crime and a very serious thing that, goes on inside the prison, has a whole dynamic to the type of inmates that you'll meet throughout the prison setting. They have a whole different kind of little stigma that goes with them, and we'll discuss that. So once again, not to be in a judgmental state, but I just thought that it was a terrible thing that a child couldn't go into specific places out of fear that there may be someone paying attention to that child more than they should be. But I'm glad and I'm grateful that she warned me of that. So just be careful. There's a lot of stuff that's going on out in the world, and we just have to be mindful and be careful. We always want to give people the benefit of the doubt. When a sister by the name of Sherazada Ali shared in one of the documentaries that she did, she said, "Don't give me no benefit of the doubt. There's no benefit in doubt. So when you doubt a situation, you don't get a benefit out of doubt it. That's why our motto here is know before you enroll. Don't enroll in order to know." So basically, as I'll keep on continue to say over and over, know stuff. Knowledge is key. We say that knowledge is key, and we say that, and we use it as a simple phraseology or a little cliche that really doesn't mean very much. But serious business, knowledge. If you understand and know stuff, the reason why a lot of times people get into situations where they fear comes from a lack of knowing, of not knowing. When you don't know what's going to happen, when you don't know what's in the situation, it causes you to fear because you're not knowing. So the best way to kill some of your fears, some of your inconsistencies or what have you, and trust me, I'm telling you and teaching you and saying these things to you just as I say them to myself. I'm not the best, and I'm not a pillar of righteousness. I'm not a person that always gets it right. So I just want to make sure that we understand that as well, because I know how sometimes naysayers and people say, "Oh, you getting on there being self-righteous, acting like you don't make no mistakes. You just, think you all that and everything." You know how the world is. But again, the duty of the civilized person is the deep civilization to the uncivilized. Instead of me coming down to your level, let me help you bring you up to my level. And this isn't to say that there's not levels above the level that I'm on. So it's all about levels, stages, and degrees. However, we just must always be able to lend a hand. Remember, one of the other phraseologies that we had was each one, teach one, reach one. I'll continue to say, no one truly cares. No one truly cares what you know until they know that you care. So until somebody cares, you can care about a person when you're giving them some kind of criticism or whatever. Usually, most times they won't accept it. They're just like, hey, whatever. So we'll get to the Q&A, to the question and answer parts a little later. But first, we have to go into the lesson that I wanted to share with you today, which was about booking, about the booking process. So again, I do encourage you to go on to some of my other social media platforms outside of the live stream and see the AI reels that we put together that tell these stories. These stories are basically to take you from from taking you from the time that you were arrested, or even before that, because we started with arrested development, making sure that you get an understanding that you can be locked up on the outside as well as on the inside. Captivity or being locked up is a mindset. Just like poverty is a mindset. If you think impoverished, if you think that you don't have, if you think that you lack, if you think that you can't get it, think that nothing's going to happen for you. If you think that way, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. So you think that way, that's what will come to you. And trust and believe, I'm one of the very people that has to remind myself as well, because I do myself to this day. I get into anxiety situations when I start to doubt me and doubt me. But again, there's no benefit in doubt. So when someone says, I give you the benefit of the doubt, just remind yourself that there's no benefit in doubting. It's just a cliche that we say over and over and over and over. So with regards to the whole booking process, as we continue on with this, we got to get an understanding of, what booking is about. The booking process. I've heard people say, oh man, he got booked. This dude got booked. He got booked. So what is booking really about? So if you're arrested or you're apprehended, whether you're guilty or not guilty, one of the first stages after you make it to a city jail or a county jail is the booking process. What the booking process is, where they go and find as much information about you as they possibly can in order to be able to know how to classify you, where to send you. The booking process really doesn't even get into your crime really yet. It's just trying to find that information about you. So before the booking process happens, everyone that gets locked up and goes to the city jail or to the county jail, you're going to run into a thing called the holding cell. Once again, we have a lesson called Holding Cell Hell that's done, by my sister really well about the through AI, and it's just have to pay attention to it if you can see it. But one of the things about the holding cell is this is someplace that you must go. So I know a lot of people say, well, I got a bondsman on speed dial and everything. I ain't gonna do no jail. I ain't gonna do it. Well, if you go in for a DWI on the weekends or something, and they're gonna take you before you get booked in, they're gonna put you in this holding cell. Now these holding cells, again, pay attention to the reels if you will, but the holding cells are not like other cells, because on the holding so you haven't been classified. So what that means is they'll throw you inside of a, most times it's like a big cell. It's like a big cell, has multi-man and everything. Rarely are they just one person or two people, and usually they're big, and they put you inside these with all different types of people. Everything, the type of person that you think that you can come in contact with, you'll probably find inside of a holding cell, especially on the weekends, especially on the holidays. You know how it goes. People always say, you don't want to go to jail on the holidays. You don't want to go to jail on the weekends, because by chance you go on a Friday or something, the booking process may take, because you have to talk to judges and everything. He might be gone golfing or whatever the case may be. So you may take, days. It could take, if you're going on a Friday, you might not even see a judge till Monday. So that's why a lot of people say, hey man, you don't want to go on the weekends. I mean, you don't want to go at all, but definitely not on the weekends or holidays, or long, periods of time where, they can't get to a judge. So back to the booking process. So once you leave this holding cell, again, and this is not to scare people, but the holding cells are dangerous in the fact that there's people there that's angry. They just got arrested. Some of them are on, what's the terminology? Illicit drugs or controlled substance or substances. Some of them may be coming off withdrawals from being in there for, time at for a period of time, and they're withdrawn from either some type of, controlled substance or, even, strong drink or what have you. So it's kind of dangerous in those places because, again, they don't care. You have a jaywalker in there, a person that may be a choir boy singer or something inside of there with people that are unalivers. I'm talking about real gunners and hitters. So it's just a situation that you really have to be careful of when you go there. So you sit inside of these, and in the process of waiting, I always mention hurry up and wait. The name of the game when you're dealing with any kind of system, whether it be inside or out, we know, even if it's the DMV, it's hurry up and wait. You have to rush to get there. They rush you to get there, but then it's about waiting. So with this being the case, is you're waiting for your number to come up. And if you're in a city with a high crime rate, or if you're in a big city versus a small rural area or a town, if you're in one of these places, it could take a long time again, because, it's like first come, first serve. And in the process of doing this, there's always more people than there are computers. So if you have a clerk or something, and maybe 2 or 3 clerks trying to do these booking ins, they usually, most times, unless again you're in a small town or a small area, most times you're going to come into contact with more people than processors. So what they want to know when they do finally call your number and you get there, and trust and believe, you'll probably go back and forth several times. So they'll send you one time. But one of the first things they want to know is pretty much, your basic vitals, your vital statistics. They want to know your name, your date of birth, your social security number. They want to know what school you went to, know where your last employment was. And they also want to know about siblings. They want to know about your parents, your whole family structure, and how, your background area is. Out here that I've said a million times and will continue to say, is best qualified to reward all research. What that means is one of my great good brothers by the name of Eric Stafford. He's one of the historian brothers that I know. He's really good with history, and maybe sometime he will send me some of his information so that you can have some of his tours if you live in the Kansas City area, because he's really good with the whole historical foundation of what Kansas City is really about, and other historical things. But what I wanted to say about history being best qualified to reward our research, history, I want to talk about history because, especially if you're an African American person, well, you say the word history, first thing we think of slavery or enslavement, or we think something bad. But nothing can be without history. Every single thing has a history. What you did yesterday was your history, and what you did yesterday, it actually directly plays a part in what you do today. There's no way to erase your history. Now, many people have tried to erase group people's history, but your history, you have to understand your history. You have to know where you came from, why you did this. And I'm not saying you have to necessarily go deep, but basically on your decision making. If you want to understand why you make some of the decisions that you make, go back into your history, your own personal history, just you. I'm talking about you not to get no book out or whatever, but go to your own personal history and find out what it is that made you think the way that you think. We call this sale therapy because in sales you're stuck with yourself and you have to think and think and think. It's just you. Sometimes it's just you by yourself, especially if you're in segregation. But anyway, so with the history thing, know and understand that the system, they care a lot about history. So you can say the history means nothing. When you get inside the system, everything is based on history. Even if you're trying to get a home loan or something like that, they look at your credit history. If you're trying to get a job, they look at your history. So at your work history. So never let anyone tell you that history is not important. You cannot have you let your history be a passport to your future. That's what the late great Malcolm X. That's another one of his sayings. But still, history. Your history dictates your present, and your present dictates your future. So when you get into this situation with booking, again, they're getting this information, they're typing it in or what have you. But there's a thing called an NCIC, which is the National Investigator. Some people say investigator, some people say information, computer or center. The National Crime Investigative or Information, one of the two, information or investigative, computer or center. So basically what it is every single time your name comes up in a situation that has to do with law breakages, it goes into that computer. Anytime somebody reports you, so if Karen says your name and calls the police on you or whatever, and they say your name, even if you had nothing to do with it or somebody just making up stuff, it goes into the computer. Such and such, John Doe, Jane Doe, Tyrone Joe, whatever, came up, they said he did this. If it's something as small as a traffic ticket, it goes into that computer. If it's something as small as shoplifting, as we consider it could be small with shoplifting, any of the small things, and I mean small in the fact I'm talking about misdemeanor stuff. Library books didn't pay, any kind of thing. If you didn't say you pay your child support, anything that goes against the rules or the laws, there's a violation of whether you're punished greatly or not. Thank you. Whether you were published greatly, or not, or whether it was just a slap on the wrist, or maybe it was even dismissed. Anything that has to do with crime and punishment or law breakages goes in this National Crime Investigative Computer or Center. So once it goes in there, as we know, even if you get your record expunged, it will always be there. It will always be there. And the purpose of them doing this during your booking is because they have to go and find out everything about you that came from your history or your past, everything that you did, so that they can log this into the computer, the amount of times that you may have done something. And this is all getting ready for when you get to the detective bureau, but we haven't even gotten to that far yet. But everything that is about you that has to deal with crime or mistakes that you may have made, it goes into that computer and it stays locked in there. Now, what happens with that is that's a lot of information. I see you, Linda. That's right. It's a lot of information. But what the thing is they make profiles off of this stuff. So if you're a person that started off with something like, I got a bunch of speeding tickets, got a bunch of speeding tickets, I just get speeding tickets. I don't do anything else, but I will break, and that's breaking the law, getting speeding tickets. I get speeding and parking tickets. When they run that profile and everything, they'll say, well, anything that has to do with speeding, it probably has something to do with him because now he has a profile for speeding. So suppose something happens in the neighborhood where somebody sped through there and someone may have been injured with that speeding. They can punch in that area, whatever. Who's the people that do the speeding all the time? Okay, we got this guy. And they could take that information and come and pick you up for questioning. They could question you based on that profile. If you're a person that shoplifts, if something, shoplifting goes on or whatever, they say, okay, this person got away. Well, maybe in this 50-mile radius or what have you, let me type this in. Okay, well, back in 1976, 1985, and 1993, and 2016, we had this guy that keeps getting picked up for shoplifting. So since he keeps getting up for shoplifting, we ran his profile. We can come and ask him questions. And trust and believe, we know how politics goes, and we understand that there's a lot of things that that we wish that didn't happen. But the NCIC is something that does happen. You have to be very careful about what comes into that system. So another thing about this, I wanted to say about robberies, specific robberies. If a person was a robber and they have a track record of robberies, you can best believe if there's a person that's doing a lot of string of robberies or any type of heinous crime, and they can't find them. If your name pops up that you might be this person, you live in this area, and they can get the beans off your telephone or whatever, they can build a case just off the profile that goes into the National Crime Investigative or Information Computer. So make sure that you keep yourself clean, first of all. But when you go inside of those things, the information that you give, again, I can never say this enough. It stays in there. It stays in there. It could be 20 years later. And trust and believe this is all 50 states, whether it's federal, whether it's state, whether you're a juvenile, whether you're an old adult, whether you're a young adult, whatever the case may be, it doesn't discriminate, because we know how AI is. We talk about AI and we think about social media and everything. Artificial intelligence is used for many things, even in the law, even in the court system. So be careful with that. So back to the booking again, before we get to the questions and answers, because I see people are saying things, and I want to make sure that I can get as many people in as I possibly can to answer questions and stuff, because some of the questions lead me to give more information. So another thing about this booking processes take forever. It's just a long process. And that doesn't necessarily mean it's even more amplified if there are lots and lots of people that have to be booked in. But even if it's just a small group of people this particular day, maybe you went on a Tuesday when there was a lot of traffic. You're in there on a Tuesday. One thing's about this is you will have to be taken from wherever you're getting questioned at, and then you will go back into the cell, and then you come back and forth as needed. Because once they get all of your information, the social security number and things of that nature, now they have to go into this NCIC computer and find out what they can find. Once they find the things that they need to find, now we can start building what's called classification. Well, we know that this person is dangerous. This person may be dangerous as a dangerous person. So whenever we do house him in the actual county, we may want to put him around the dangerous people. If you find somebody that has less, a bunch of misdemeanor offenses, they may send you to a city jail. They may send you somewhere else. The thing about this is, it's very important to be careful of what you say. Now, again, I must also remember and remind you that I'm not on here trying to teach people how to do crime better, but I'm here to try to teach people how to protect themselves. If you choose to play the crime game, if you choose to be in the streets, if you choose to, it doesn't have to even be in the streets. If you choose to do whatever it is that's against the law breakages, you should know about what it is, because it helps to better protect you. A lot of times, many people get sentences inside of these prisons because they didn't know. Remember, again, ignorance of the law is no defense. What you don't know can and will hurt you. What you don't know can and will hurt you. And this is the reason why we put together Con-crete University in the first place, is because we just want to share information, to make sure that everyone knows what they're up against if this is what you choose to decide to do. But again, sometimes it's not actually always a choice. Sometimes people are set up. Again, there's many people that get now, especially recently with the whole internet situation, people been able to find stuff to help their loved one. Now, there's so many people that are being released in this country for wrongful convictions as well as innocent of crime. So if this is the case, as a family member, even if you have even if you have a relatively good family that's not into crime and criminal stuff, still there's things that you should know. Just take a check every now and then, check in on the news, pay attention to the news, pay attention to some of those law and court shows and everything, just to get an idea of how something can happen that you have no control over. So the best way to control your opposite is to know. So back to this booking. So once they run you through the NCIC and they get that information, they usually send it to the detective bureau so they can start questioning about the actual crime that you're in. So during this process, you may get hungry because it can take up to 12 hours, 2 hours, or however long. One thing about the booking process, whatever meal that you come in on, trust and believe you will probably more than likely receive a sack lunch. And these sack lunches that they'll give you, you're not going to get a hot meal because you're in a holding cell. It's for temporary stuff. And also, you can't even make bonds. You can't even say, I'm gonna call my bondsman. He's gonna come get me. I got him on speed dial, because I've heard that a lot. I got a bondsman on speed dial when you're trying to be, real cool and everything. You hip and all that. But still, if you don't, even if you have a bondsman that's at your ready, he could be right there and still wait until you're booked in. You have to be booked in. So when your people get into little altercations in your home and your loved one goes off, you want to rush down. I got some money now. I'm rush down and get him out. It's a process. Everything with the system is a process, so it doesn't happen immediately. You may have double the amount of the bond and everything, but that money will be no good until after the process has happened. So these sack lunches, back to these sack lunches that they give you, they're I mean, I really can't say because again, I haven't been in all counties. There may be some, higher class counties that may give you something better. But for the most part, because you haven't been booked into the actual county, you're just in a temporary sale. They give you these sack lunches. It may have an apple, a bologna sandwich, some celery sticks. We used to laugh about little celery sticks, little carrot sticks, but it's just enough to because they have to law. They have to give you something to eat. Well, it doesn't necessarily at this level have to do a portion control. It doesn't have to deal with he has to have to get a perfect nutritional value. Well, until you're booked in, it doesn't really matter. As long as they give you something, it's probably going to be 3 items. You might get a little piece of milk, little milk to drink if it's early morning, or you might get a little small. I see you, Sean Dixon, B-boy. They might give you a little orange, couple little orange juice or whatever the case may be. 9 times out of 10, it won't be a hot meal, and it'll probably be something that you look at and don't want. But you might want to hang on to it because you don't know how long it's going to be before you get your next meal. So a lot of times in these holding cells, I have to keep going back to this because this is the beginning stages and it leads to other stuff. When I was talking about them being dangerous, you got to be able to protect your lung sac because there are people in there that's gonna ask, right, man, let me get a little, can you gonna eat some cookie? And they might give you one cookie. You gonna eat your cookie. You've seen the movie Life. You gonna eat your cornbread. That happens in the holding cell before you even get to Con-crete University. It happens there. So you have all different type of people that are inside of there that you have to just be leery of. Guard your bologna sandwich. May or may not have cheese. So once you get the little sack lunch or whatever, there'll probably be a chime again. So as everybody knows, from watching crime television shows, it's time to be fingerprinted. You have to be fingerprinted. So this is an old school thing that's been going on since the 1700s. I've good research on it. Have Eric Stafford look it up. But fingerprinting is something, and you've seen it on television and the movies enough and everything. They do all of your whole entire fingers. They do your palm. And they, make sure that you get these fingerprints done, and these go into the NCIC as well. So now the computers are so good now they can go to the crime scene with a little, small little gadget or whatever, run it across wherever some fingerprints may be. It'll directly ping, go straight to the NCIC, and they can have your entire profile right at the scene of the crime. So you don't even have to be booked in. So they got you already. This is this. Okay, we know who did this, and then when they come and get you, because they already got your profile. They already got your, your information. Fingerprints have been one of the things that make unique differences from people for forever, and it's something they still use today. This is not just the days of Sherlock Holmes. Fingerprinting is very important to the system of crime and punishment. So as we know, the mug shot. The brother said, well, why are you talking about this stuff? Everybody know this stuff and everything, but again, everybody doesn't do this. So this mug shot, you don't get a chance to get preed up, dolled up, or whatever. However you look when you came in there, that's going to be this mug shot, and this mug shot goes into that computer, and this was the same thing that stays in there forever. So if you get broadcasted over the news, whatever mug shots that it was that they had from you previously or something, suppose you actually are not guilty of whatever crime it is, and that something happened, but they profiled you and they think that you might have been that person. If they show it, they might show your picture way back when you just got into an argument with your neighbor. You and your neighbor got into an argument. They decided to take you both in, for just a meltdown, just to calm down, just for a few hours, and then they let you go. So you don't even have a criminal past. But when that mugshot shows up all over the world, or all over the United States, all over the internet, that picture, that very picture, will make it seem as though you're guilty because dang, they got a picture of them, so we had to do it. You could be on the run or not even be captured, and they will use that profile picture. So the thing about that also is, if you pay attention to mug shots, it's rare unless you're like Paris Hilton or somebody. It's rare that you see people smile inside of mug shots. You don't usually see people, getting a smile, their little dimple face. You don't usually see that on mugshot pictures. Well, the reason that is, and it's not that there's a reason of, but most people that are officers there, people that book you in, if they see you smiling, they want to understand what it is that you think is so funny and smiling. So sometimes conversations, and I know this from an experience, there was a guy that I was getting booked in with or whatever, and he was like, he was probably under the influence, but he was like, I'm having a great day, even if this, happened to me, I'm having a good day, and he wanted to smile. And there's like, man, ain't nothing funny about this. We don't want to see that smiling. And so the minute that he kind of like, they snapped his picture. So you don't get a chance to profile and look nice in your mugshot, but your profile will be profiled with the mugshot. So back to the whole booking thing, booking, and this is portion right here is for the loved ones. Now remember, any questions that you might have about booking or anything, if you want, because in the next 5 minutes I'll sum this up and we can get into any question that you would like to know. But the reason again that I'm talking about booking is because these are the beginning stages. These are the beginning stages of the whole being enrolled in the Con-crete University. These are the beginning stages. So it's very important that you know this. Now, one of the things is about, I said before that they're going to ask you questions about family members. Now, again, you have to be careful what you tell because if there's a set family members, you don't have to give all the information about what my brother do. He does this, my blah, blah, blah. They may ask you these questions, but again, remember when I told you, before about your constitutional rights to the Fifth Amendment. You don't have to tell where your father works. You don't have to tell what kind of company he has. You don't have to tell your mother. Now, as far as names, I mean, they could, that's what they have the great big computer for. So if it's something that they need to find out outside of you, then you don't necessarily have to. You don't have to give up information about your children or any of that stuff. So if they need to find out what school you went to, they can do that. And again, I'm not telling you these things in order to be rebellious, but you have to be careful because many times cases are built off of stuff that other people say. Now, in prison, I'll give you a couple of terms from in prison. So we're always talking about snitches get stitches, and we talk about stitching. But there's another term that's used called dry snitching. And what dry snitching is that you didn't have any intent on getting anybody in trouble. You didn't say, I'm setting out to, this dude named Scooby, I don't like him. So I'm going to go and try to tell some stuff, get people get on him and everything so he can move out the way so I can do it. I'm not talking about that. Sometimes we feel that we're trying to be helpful and in helping ourselves or to say something, about someone else, whether they might not be in any kind of trouble. But when you give certain informations out, then that information again goes into that computer and something may happen and that has nothing to do with that person. Suppose your great grandmother's a gardener. All she does is read, her books and gardens all the day. Well, when you give her information, again, some seeds may have been stolen at the Walgreens or wherever the case may be, and they go run the profile. Okay, well, we know because this guy got arrested, said his grandmother's deeply into gardening, maybe baby. Now, I know this may seem far-fetched and stuff, but in order to keep crime, with this new computer age and with this whole new regime and stuff, that's hell-bent on crime and punishment, they use any kind of tactics to make sure that they, under the guise of let's keep America safe or let's keep people safe. And again, I have no problem with safety. I told you before, dangerous people don't even want to be around dangerous people. So I'm not trying to say, hey, dangerous. But again, going back to the phrase, civilized people should teach civilization uncivilized. So be tactful in the things that you say because you don't want some divert to harm you because you're trying to help them. A drowning person can drown you. You could go out to try to drown someone and mess around and get drowned by doing it. So you have to be tactful in everything you do. But a lot of times, again, because the mental health issues that America suffers from and places suffer from, a lot of times people just don't know. And so you can't and trust and believe they can convict you off stuff that you just don't know. So it may be a person that's doing something that you may think is foolish or might think that it's crazy or whatever the term that you like to put with it, but it might just be that they don't know. I had a conversation again with my son this week as well, and we had to have a discussion about being disrespectful versus being discourteous. When you're talking to people and everything, you have to understand the difference between being disrespectful and discourteous, especially these young generations, because everything is about respect. And again, when you get to prison, everything is about respect. And I had to learn this myself. Sometimes a person may do something that's against you, but not necessarily be disrespectful. In order to disrespect a person, you must have intent. You must intend to disrespect them. So you don't accidentally discourteous. So maybe by instance, me and my son were discussing this. Suppose I come into a place where there's a lot of people partying and dancing, having a good time. And this has been a problem, in the black and brown communities, as we know. And I step on your shoe. I didn't intend to step on your shoe, so that wouldn't be disrespectful. That would be discourteous. So my son said to me, well, dang, Pop, what if after you step on the shoe and you apologize to this dude for stepping on his shoe and you apologize for stepping on the shoe, then that would be discourteous, right? I said, yeah, you made a mistake and you said, I apologize for that. So that wasn't the term. He said, but what if somebody steps on your shoe and then you look up at them and then they cuss you out and go off and say, get you in your shoe. What is that? And I said, well, that's disrespect. So the basic premise of me saying this whole disrespect versus discourteous thing is going back to my phrase. The duty of the was to teach civilization. The duty of the civilized person is to teach civilization to the uncivilized. So what I'm saying is, if you are a civilized person, should have much civility to want to teach that to someone else. And it doesn't have to necessarily be somebody in need. Their situation to go on and say, man, if you did this way, it may come out better for you. But just be tactful. I mean, if you're civilized, you should know how to be tactful. Ain't that right, Sister Linda? I know your principal, and you definitely have taught me some things. So with regards to questions, any question that you might have about the whole booking process. So the end of booking process is at the booking process. Once they get through getting all the information that they can about you, this is when the bond comes. Now remember, this is based on information from your past. So if you show that you have a past criminal history or a criminal record or a criminal, it could be just small stuff. It could be vandalism. You could be a person that just likes to vandalize. Based on the amount of time that you are arrested or the amount of time that your name comes up, again, remember, sometimes people can just make a phone call and say your name, and that will go into the computer. Such and such made a complaint about this guy walking on our grass. That's in the computer. You may seem petty to you, but it is. But the point of the matter is, whenever the time comes for you to go to detectives, this is part of the profile that they use to link you to whatever crime. Also, when you get sentenced, whenever you go to sentence, God forbid you don't have to ever go that far, but if you actually have to go to be sentenced after a trial or a plea bargain or whatever, that same history that was in that profile from the first day that you got booked in, it follows you, and they use that as a judgment to either increase or even decrease your sentence. But one thing I will say about the NCIC, I haven't actually been on one to do and check and see, but I know the profiles are built off of wrongdoings. They don't sit down and wait for, okay, this guy saved a cat from a tree or whatever, and then they put that in the computer. So again, any profile that they create from you is probably a profile that's not good, whether you deserved it or not. Then the bonding comes, and that's where your bond comes. So we'll get more into this as well as other things. But again, like I said, with the whole Con-crete University, know before you enroll, don't enroll to know. I'm trying to give us a look at all of the stages and steps, all the way from the time that you're arrested until a person makes parole, if that need be. I had a wealth of knowledge by experiencing that for all those years, 3.5 decades. And I just want to share that with somebody else. It doesn't make sense for, people to be, caught up if they don't necessarily have to. Okay, so I have Michael Bronson, who's the Don, who's my father, says, continue to spread the knowledge, my son. Knowledge is so powerful. And I don't think people realize that. This is one of the people that always, stayed on my head about learning stuff. You can lead a horse to water, as they say, but you can't make them drink. A lot of times when we teach people something, even if it's just say it blanketly, you just say stuff, your mind never forgets. Even though we think that it does, we say, I forgot something. Your short-term memory may be a little rusty or what have you, but everything is recorded and it goes into your subconscious. I don't want to get deep into the whole philosophical, parts of it, but many times, if you know from your own experiences in life, something that someone may have said to you 10 years ago, later on, as you get further in life, you're like, oh man, I remember doing it. You might not accept it because there's many times where, old heads or older guys would tell me, man, you might want to die. Man, I don't want to hear that stuff. Man, I ain't talking about that, man. You don't know what I've been through. You don't know, who I am. You don't know where I go through. You don't know nothing to get out of my face. And then years later, I'm like, man, OG told me that, or old school told me that, or that wise man told me that. If I would have listened back then, I might be in a situation there. It says, do they hold taxes against you? That's from Melinda Wilson. Do they hold taxes against you? Yes, ma'am, they do. Anything that goes against the laws and rules of either the Constitution or any civil or criminal things, yes, it goes into that computer. Now, as far as holding against you, as far as being sentenced on a criminal case, I can't say that is. But again, it's building a profile. If you're a person that's maybe get arrested for maybe stealing something, maybe some kind of theft or whatever, then they can look and say, well, this is, by the preponderance of evidence based on this NCIC, they didn't pay their taxes, so they're basically robbing the government. So why would we not believe that they would not rob, Joe on the corner, or, doing some tax evasion? Maybe they would, maybe they didn't, that you didn't even pay your phone bill. You don't pay your phone bill, all the credit, all this stuff goes into this NCIC. So anything that you can come up with that is an infraction can be used later against you. That is so true, and most people do not know. Yes, brother Artist Swapper Jr. is saying slow process, and he used four O's in the slow process. It is a very slow process. It's very slow process. And yes, technology has changed. So again, it could be possible. It could be possible. It could take just like I said over the weekend. It could take 2 or 3 days, and even if it's not on the weekend, it could take a long time. I'll say a phone call typically depends on the officer and what they have going on. That's another thing that I must say. Now, some of the older jails, you may go into one of those holding cells, and there may be one or two telephones, which is another reason for strife and violence. Ooh, I'm on the phone. I'm trying to call my bondsman. You talk to your girl, about don't cheat on you and stuff. That causes a lot of uh, combative behavior. However, a lot of times, and especially in the new age with these new jails or what have you, you can't even make that phone call, that one phone call. You see it on television. I just I didn't even make my phone call my lawyer. You sometimes can't even do that until after the booking process. Once you've been booked in, then you can use the phone. So if you have a person that's really like clingy to you, they say, well, you got locked up yesterday. You ain't called nobody yet. Yeah, it wasn't because I wasn't trying to call you. It's because the booking process. So make sure that as we close out too, we're getting to that, but I'll get to that. Also, my beautiful daughter, Tyra Bolin, comes in and she says, I thought that dry snitching was intentional. I mean, there can be an intentional dry snitch, but it's dry. So it's not like, there have guys that would say, I'll give you an example, and brother artist can attest to this. So suppose I'm doing something illegal in my cell. They may not go directly to the officer and say, hey, such and such is doing something illegal in this cell. They'll walk past the officer, man, dude up there doing that such and such illegal stuff in this cell. That's intentional dry snitching. That's them saying. But sometimes, again, you may not know what's going on. And like for instance, a guy could be cooking something with an illegal cooking pot, and we'll get into that as we go forward. And you could just walk by and say, "Man, such and such is up there, man. Fried burritos or whatever food it is that he's cooking smells good." And then the officer's like, so that's where that smell is coming from. And it could be just something as simple as he got a illegal extension cord or something. So it's not that the intent was to get that person in trouble, but by you being unmindful and just talking about other people's business, somebody got caught up because, hey, I didn't mean no harm, and they probably didn't mean no harm. But trust and believe, there are people that will scream stuff out loud and make it seem like, man, I didn't say nothing. I didn't say your name. Okay. What else do we have? Yes. So just be careful. Just be careful. Again, wow, on those fingerprinters. You said wow on those fingerprints. Wow, yeah, most definitely, yes. Those fingerprints, like I said, it's not stuck back in the Sherlock Holmes days. It's not just stuff made for TV. This is real stuff. Your fingerprints are bam. I mean, even when you go to hospitals, you know how your children are fingerprinted, and they put the fingerprint and handprint, and do all that kind of stuff. That stuff doesn't necessarily go to an NCIC computer. I'm not going to say it goes to the crime computer, but it definitely goes in the computer. They can take those, and match them with these, even though they've grown or what have you. Fingerprints are, yeah, that's a whole, deep thing. I think I can't remember what it is. Take 9 points or 14 points to match you or whatever. Google it, find out for yourself. But yes, your fingerprints. Be careful where you put your fingerprints. And I'm saying again, this is not to say, hey man, make sure you do crime, you don't leave your fingerprints. I'm not giving you that for that. Sometimes in certain areas, you may not even have a criminal idea, and you could leave your fingerprints. Watch the stories. This is not something I made up. I can't make this stuff up. There have been people that have been convicted of crimes because their fingerprints were left in some place that was a high crime area or in the scene of a crime, and they had nothing whatsoever to do with it. So your fingerprints are very important, especially in this day and age. So as we go on, I'm going to before we close out, I'm going to put a couple of websites and links that I would like for you to share. These are people that back me and care about me and stuff. And so again, if you really care about somebody, you will wish for them what you wish for yourself. And so that being the case, I would like for you to check out Memory Made Music. That's memorymademusic.com. And this is my sister Alexis. You go on there and she'll explain to you everything that's going on. But this is something that's up and coming, and it's really nice. And I always mess up my cousin's transport company, Nashe's Elegant Transports. That's my cousin Eric Bronson or what have you, and he's doing a lot with the transportation. I still have to hook him and brother artists up. See what I mean right there. by me saying I need to hook those two up and everything, that could be misconstrued. Like, what is it they trying to do? You just said this man's name and you put this man's name with that name. What's going on? If somebody who wants to be in the know to pay attention, they try to find some kind of link between those two, and that's how it happens. But anyway, also for the brother Robert, again, I thank you greatly for the lighting. But he wants you to log into his page. He has the Immortal Order book series. Immortal Order book series. This brother's been telling me since I was incarcerated. I used to, reach out to him and everything. So, man, I got these books coming out. I got these books coming out. I got these books coming out. Well, myself being a writer that has never completed anything, ask my mama, has never completed any books. In fact, the stuff that we get from Con-crete University is coming from a book that I started, years ago in prison, keeping documents and stuff. So hopefully I'll get that, published say someday soon. But Immortal Order book series, Robert Washington, brother of mine, check out his books, order his books. We have to help each other out and stuff. And it's not just about, okay, when I'm putting all into it. The more you invest in people, the more people can invest in you. The more you put out is the more you get back. That's dealing with energy, that's dealing with, physicality or what have you. What you put into a thing is what you get out. Y'all know how it goes. So follow me on Facebook, of course, at concreteuniversity.com. I'm on TikTok as well as, I always mess these things up, YouTube. So pretty much Con-crete, C-O-N, for the YouTube, C-O-N-C-R-E-T-E University. And on those other ones, you can just put Con-crete University and I should pop up. I really do appreciate your views. I really appreciate your comments. And please share as much as you can. Again, this is not just about me. It's about trying to save lives. It's about trying to stop and possibly detour some of the young individuals as well as old individuals. I remember a wise man told me, he said, man, young fools turn into old fools. And old fools used to be young fools. So, this is not just for any particular demographic. It's for anyone, any race, creed, color. It doesn't matter to me. If I can help with that, great. Because again, it's not about beating the system. It's about trying to detour somebody from crime. If you know that you having a situation, you go to a party and get to some little small falling out, that your little 2 minutes of enjoyment could turn into 20 years of pain. If you know that, you're just thinking about, God dang, this dude told me I like to eat. He's talking about I might go to this booking and have to be in there for 3 days. I want to get one sandwich. That's all I'm going to get is a sandwich. Maybe I might not do that today. So again, it's to detour. It's to give you some thoughts and some ideas that can turn you away from doing something that could possibly be life-changing. I never thought that me being a young man and still in an automobile would turn into me spending 36 years, nearly 36 years, 35.6 years of incarceration for stealing an automobile. So you can look the case up if you want to know more about it. This is not the place or the time for that. However, just know, again, I always snap my finger. It can happen very quickly. So know before you enroll. That is, I have something coming from Melinda Wilson again. That is so true. They are all about respect, but they don't know what that means. It is totally different these days. Yes, I greatly understand that, especially, I've been seeing situations on whether it be on social media, and I've seen it a couple of times out in the streets. I remember we was raised to respect elders, period. It didn't have to be your mama, your daddy, whatever, any elder, any person that was older than you, any person that was, of the pillar in the community, they deserve respect. You respect them. You had to give them respect. So nowadays you got to earn my respect. You got to do something to make me feel good. You got to do something to make me feel, earn your respect. And don't get me wrong. Sometimes respect has to be earned, but remember, respect is gained in little small drops, but it's lost in buckets. So just like you earn a respect, whatever pillar of life that you're in, it doesn't take very much at all for you to lose respect. And I noticed that me dealing as a mentor inside of the prison, dealing with those young guys, little young misguided young men or whatever, dealing with them. I mean, sometimes I had to snatch their chains. Sometimes you got to get right down to where they are. You have to go down to where they are to be able to reach them. I used to tell a friend of mine, I said, here I am in the 4th grade, and you're trying to teach me calculus, and I ain't even understand all my numbers yet. I can't even count to 100, and you're trying to teach me about calculus. So again, people don't know how much you care, how much you know, until they know how much you care. Sometimes you got to come down there, but make sure you have your safety blanket, make sure that you can get back. Man, this is why I stay praying. The legal system is too much. Right. Renee Rivera comes in with, what if your family is looking for you? Can the jail verify you're there even if you have not yet been booked in? That depends. That's kind of tricky because we have nowadays they have all of these different acts where confidentiality is a thing. Well, I don't want to tell because I hate to put this out there, but this is a reality too. Sometimes there will be people that don't like you and mean you harm, and they will go call the jail, find out how much your bond is, make your bond so they can harm you. We've heard stories of this. So it depends. There's certainly, especially with juvenile, it just depends. Just speaking, of me again today, having to go to a parole person, they say, if you want to sign this consent form, because you can sign this consent form to let somebody know in case you were to get picked up or something happened, if they needed to get information from us, they could. But outside of you signing that consent form, we can't tell the people nothing. So, they have all these HIPAA laws and all these laws about, keeping people's information secure, even though it's becoming more and more insecure, but keep it secure. So I guess you'd have to just call and ask. I really can't say. It just depends where that person is and what's going on with them. But usually during the booking process, they probably won't tell you until after you've been booked in. Until after they've been booked in. Let's see what else do we have here. So again, I greatly appreciate any person, Memory Made, okay, MemoryMadeMusic.com, made the song for Con-crete University. Great. So one of the song that you hear, that I'm about to play, the outro or whatever, these songs were made by the website that I'm sending you to for my sister's business. So again, each one teach one, each one reach one, and we have to help those. At least if you see a person that's trying to help themselves, reach out and help. It's too short of a day just for us to be so stingy. One of the things that I learned, remember keep saying that prison is a microcosm of the real world. The people that are on the outside come to the inside, so they're human beings. They're people just the same. But one of the things I know, because we've gotten to such a individualistic world, everything's individual, everything's about me, me, me. I don't care about groups. I don't want to join groups. I don't want to do nothing with no groups of people, whatever. But then you get on social media, they call it the World Wide Web. It's a web of people, it's a great tool, what have you, but it can be dangerous as well, but it has a great tool. So we want to reach out to people in certain ways. If it's something about us sharing, look at what I did. But then when it comes to supporting somebody else's dream or somebody else's ideas or whatever, then we're so quick to turn away from that. I don't look at that. And that very well thing that you're turning away from could very well be something that helps you out in the future. So just be careful of who you deny and who you accept. So I'm not saying accept everybody just on face value because there's a happy guy that comes and says he had a little song and dance, and maybe I should join his little group because he got a song and dance. Feel people out. And remember, history is best qualified to reward our research. So that means if you can check the history of anything and take the proper knowledge and everything, you can find out a wealth of things. I mean, the system that we live in, and I'm not just talking about criminal justice, they use it every single day. There's not anything that you can really do without somebody checking your history. So take that out of your mouth that, I don't care about history. I don't want to know about history. Please forgive me for trying to do some things. I have to get my engineer right. But this is pretty much it. I have 2 more minutes. I want to thank everybody for, tuning in to Con-crete University. I hope that I can continue doing this because, as I talk to you, sometimes you don't see people that, send the comments in, that are sending comments in, but I get telephone calls and I get text messages from, true friends and people that can help me that say, hey, let me help you do this, or maybe you should have thought about that, or maybe you could consider this. And I appreciate all of that because, again, remember I have the guys in prison who say, I don't turn down nothing but my collar. So if there's something that can be helpful, even constructive criticism, my engineer just told me recently that if you talk real fast, you slow down, just slow down and breathe. I have to accept that, slow down and breathe. But I move really fast, when it comes to talking, because I just have so much to say and I have a lot of passion and I want to get it out there. However, if I'm talking too fast, maybe you listen too slow. Maybe I ain't talking fast. Maybe you listen slow. So that's it. That's Con-crete University for the day. We're about to close it out. But again, I appreciate everything. And hope to see you next Wednesday at the same time, 7 o'clock.
In the penitentiary, listen up to Dean XL, be free. And you will know before you go, never have to see how prison can really be. Listen, learn and practice consistency. This is prison literacy. Yeah. Ooh, oh, oh, ooh, oh. see it.
Know before you enroll.